Oh boy, time to go on Twitter as someone with a 9 to 5. Okay. Oh my god, it's Pathologic 3. I'm so excited. Let's see the comments. Replies. I don't use Twitter. Please speak on the Nikolay situation. It's been
Planning
over
to
a
address
month
the
and we
violent
still haven't gotten
alcoholic in
any
charge of
word.
the studio.
Will be pure
It's
silence.
been months.
That's
Please
all
speak
fans
on
will get
Dybowski's
from you.
action.
What? If that's a thought you've had after seeing the response to the most recent tweet by Icepick Lodge, you're in the right place. This situation has been unfolding over the past few months, and unfortunately I found there was a lot of misinformation that was confusing and muddling what we do know to the point it was almost impossible to figure out what actually happened. Hence, I thought it might be nice to make a video on what we know thus far, and you can take your own opinions from it. Before I begin, there's a couple of things I want to address. Number 1. Most of these statements are allegations. We do not know how much of this is true, as some statements cannot be confirmed or denied. For matters of proper journalism, I have to make clear that we do not know everything. However, we can assume, based on the amount of people repeating the similar rhetoric, there may be truth within them. Number 2. I will be going through every allegation as objectively as possible. This entire situation is incredibly emotional for both the people affected by it and the people reading it. Because of this, I'm going to try to remove words that can be considered subjective. However, that being said, I feel the actions speak for themselves without condemning language. Though, if you feel that I am being too cold, I apologize. Number 3. Personal opinion. I'm re-recording this part because I didn't quite like the way that I said this, so it might sound a little different and I apologize. In short, I am not going to give my personal opinion on the matters. For the sake of credibility, I do not think that my opinion, regardless of how strong it is, matters in the conversation. However, at the end, I have a small part about why I think Icepick Lodge has not spoken on the issue yet. That part is more subjective in my opinion, and I will make sure to properly convey when that happens. For the record, I am not Russian, I am Dutch, and I work in the industry in the Netherlands. I cannot be considered a credible source for the exact translations of what has been recounted. I am using both Google Translate and the things that other people have translated for us. Do not use me as a direct source regarding any statements. Instead, I implore you to look at the description, where I have linked the master posts where you can look for yourself. I am not making this video to claim any of these things are true. I am simply recounting the things that I have found because I recognize that for some people it may be a lot of emotional and time-sensitive trouble to read all of it themselves. I hope that I do a good enough job of recounting everything as objectively as possible so that people can be well informed and make decisions based on what they know. I will also most likely be butchering Russian names, and I apologize. I am doing my best here. As per the nature of this video, I will very briefly be going over some very sensitive topics. Consider this your content warning for the following things: alcoholism, grooming, sexual predation on minors, abuse, kidnapping, and manipulation. Now that that's out of the way, it's time to begin addressing the main allegations at this time. I will be going through them in the order they were revealed. Grooming. In 2021, Reddit user Minafiyo posted a master list on the Pathologic subreddit. It details how Nikolay had allegedly been grooming minors in his time as a teacher at HSC. These people had been speculated to be between the ages of 15 to 18, where one anonymous person confirms to have been 16 at the time that Nikolay would have made sexual remarks towards her. Nikolay has responded to this, claiming it is false, and then claiming to sue for libel with HSC. HSC then dismissed these claims by denying it. Eventually, Nikolay was fired as a teacher from HSC for sexual misconduct. We do not have confirmation or denial if this was regarding these allegations, though I do want to point out that the person we are talking about in the next section, Nikolay's ex-wife, had been 16 when they met. Renata. In December of 2024, Renata made a post on the Russian site DTF about what she had endured while married to Nikolay. In her posts, she details how Nikolay had begun drinking heavily to the point of alcoholism in the start of 2020. She also claims that he was emotionally abusive in this time, that there were cases of infidelity and financial manipulation. In April of 2024, he had hit her, and she left him that day, taking their son with her. She and her son went to Crimea to be with her parents for safety's sake, soon after she filed for divorce. Following the court proceedings, Renata was given full custody of their son. This was because Nikolay could not prove to the court to properly be able to care for him in regards to his statements, and he allegedly adjusted his income in such a way to only have to pay minimum alimony. During this time, Nikolay and his family had convinced Renata to still let him see their son. She allowed him to be with their son while supervised and allowed phone calls. Unfortunately, Nikolay ended up taking advantage of this agreement in December of 2024 by abducting their son when Renata left him alone in a public location. Nikolay and his mistress of the past year, Anna Bastner, decided to take his son against Renata's and Nikolay's unofficial agreement and keep him away from her indefinitely. Though by coincidence, the train they intended to use to escape had been the same one which Renata and her father were planning to board. Renata attempted to retrieve her son and was hit by Nikolay, to which her father had protected her. He suffered a traumatic brain injury from the conflict and was admitted to the hospital. Bystanders helped to pull Nikolay off of them, assuring Renata's ability to regain access to her son. This was the first step to receiving more statements from people, as they were so shocked by the information that 2 others have publicly come out. Ex-employee statements. Directly following the statement by Renata, an anonymous ex-IPL employee made a statement about Nikolay's alleged behavior within the company. According to this anonymous person, Nikolay would frequently show up to work drunk, late, or not at all. He would miss deadlines and make people redo their work frequently. According to them, Pathologic 2 was not made because of, but in spite of him. They claim he was extremely manipulative, vindictive, and cruel to his employees, making them work overtime, constantly adjust to his needs, and firing veterans of the company at will. He was a bad lead, according to them, in short. It is also to assume that Pathologic 3 was greatly delayed because of his actions within the company. Furthermore, this person details how many people within the company had been his grooming victims, ex-students that he brought there in guise of their talent. There was a scandal in which women in the company claimed to feel unsafe when left alone with him. Another employee, Yaroslav Kravtsov, seconds this statement. He claims to have been acquainted with Nikolay since 2006. He also mentions that at the time Pathologic 2 was being made, Nikolay was teaching at HSC, which would greatly impact the amount of work he would be able to do for the project. Also, there were claims of him teaching classes while inebriated, and more about harassment of female students. It is assumed to be the case that despite Nikolay claiming to have done most of the work for Pathologic 2, this is simply not true, especially considering the workload he would have done while incapacitated. I mention this directly because I see a lot of misinformation about Nikolay's participation in the projects, and I feel it's safe to assume, based on statements made by ex-employees, that he did not do as much work as he claims. These are, as concretely as possible, everything we know about the allegations against Nikolay Dybowski that have been made public. The next section is going to be personal speculation and some subjective commentary, which I personally feel are important. However, if you are just here to get the short version of the allegations, this is the end of the road. For everyone else, let's continue. Why has IPL been silent? Facecam jump scare. I was editing this video at college and realized that the tone that I had written came across as very well-researched and as if I was making a clear statement, and I wanted to change the format a little bit to make it clear that I wasn't, because this part of the video about why Ice Pick Lodge would not be saying anything quite yet is very subjective, because we do not know what's going on, and frankly, that's none of our business at this moment. However, I did want to say something about it because on Twitter I see a lot of people asking them to make a statement, and I do think this is good. I think it's good to hold people and companies accountable, especially when something like this has just happened. The reason I wanted to add this part is because when I was looking on Twitter, and I'm aware that this is a small part of the fandom, but I was seeing a lot of attacks towards the IPL employees and towards the content that they have posted on Twitter, assuming that they are willingly harboring what we can only assume is an abuser. And I wanted to make a statement from my own personal opinion, what I think is happening, that is not the case. What you need to understand is that IPL is a small company and is not to the degree that it can be treated as an entity on its own. What I think is most likely the case, based on what I know and based on the things I have seen, is that there are two things going on. Number one is that the court had just happened. There are a lot of things that they can't say because it could have been discussed in court, or the statements from people from IPL could be still used for the case of Nikolay Dybowski, which is something that we would not want in this situation. Number two is a lot more simple, and that is that they are most likely dealing with it internally, and they cannot say anything yet until it's over because it could be used against them. Now, I do understand being frightened that a figure who is, from what we have seen, morally unjust is an acting figure in a franchise that we care about very deeply. I have heard that people are attacking people who work at Ice Pick Lodge, and I think it is very cruel, and you should not do that. These people have worked with Nikolay Dybowski directly. They are directly affected by his words and actions. A lot of them did not know about the things with Renata. These are people who have most likely once looked up to this man and seen him do terrible things now that they have to emotionally deal with. And the people who work at IPL and the people who have worked at IPL are just as much victims of this situation as the people who were directly groomed. Not to mention, if we are to follow the ex-employee's statement from before, a lot of people who worked in the IPL team were his grooming victims directly. So all I ask, based on what I have seen on Twitter, is that we treat them with a little bit of kindness and a little bit of patience, and be assured that they will eventually make a statement. Because I do not believe, based on knowing which kind of people are behind the works of Pathologic and the other games, that they would willfully harbor an abuser. On a similar note, do not attack or harass any person who is not comfortable talking about this very emotional situation, who makes choices to either avoid it or not address it directly. This is not a targeted conversation, but I have seen shame sent towards fans who have chosen not to address this. This is a very emotional and, for some people, very traumatic topic that needs to be treated with some nuance and some decency. If you make statements shaming people for the way that they are addressing it emotionally, that does not help, and it takes away from the conversation that is really important, and that is that there are victims that are still being affected and are currently dealing with this situation a lot more than we as the fandom are. We have the privilege of being on the outside looking in, and so it is our duty to treat everybody with a little bit of patience and respect until the thing is resolved. Usually with these types of videos, it ends with a call to action. I will not be doing this because it is not my place, because I don't know what's going on and I am speculating this part. There is no shame in what you end up choosing. If you do not want to give the people at Ice Pick Lodge your money by buying the game because you fear it will go to Nikolay Dybowski, that is your own choice and it's not wrong. Same thing if you choose to support them. The only thing that I want to mention in that regard is that we should not forget that the people who are making Pathologic 3 right now are doing their very best with what they have, and we should not assume that just because you work at Ice Pick Lodge, you support him. I do very quickly want to address one point, that is that there was a lot of hate towards Ice Pick Lodge for sharing content of their new trailer. And I do want to preface that it is very important to ask for accountability, and it is very important to ask for a statement, and I think that part is good. But I can also imagine that it is a little disheartening to see all your hard work be diminished because of this man who has done these things. And I just want to remind people very gently that these are works made by very hardworking, very creative people that have been doing their best over the past couple of years. And it is okay to say nice things about what has been made. We can assume, based on the things that the ex-employees have said, that Nikolay was most likely not a large part of the production in that regard. And I think it's important that we are allowed to praise it for what it is, which it is very, very good, and it's very exciting. But yeah, in short, don't harass the employees at Ice Pick Lodge. They are doing their best. Be a little patient, because I can assume and I can state that there is probably going to come a statement. It's just that they can't say anything right now. And everybody, good luck in this time. I understand it's very emotional, but it will be okay. And have a good